and we're going to have to let them know this is a little unusual because we're going to be talking about me, which is going to be a unique thing. But you got good stuff going. I want you to touch on it. You got a big thing going about Chinese New Year now and everything, and it's so good to see you like always. Welcome very much to Conversations, where I will briefly here introduce the guest, Paul Sladkus. He's an old friend of Conversations. We've done 3 or 4 or 5 programs and with him over the years, and also with a number of the people he represents, coming out of a distinguished and long career in broadcast, network broadcast, and public television broadcast. He's the chairman, founding chairman of Milestone Communication, and he's also the chairman of Good News Broadcast Corporation. He has a website that's very interesting, and he's a major figure on the scene and a very good guy. We've done programming. Paul, welcome very much to
Thank you, Harold. Thank you very much.
And I'm going to have to set this program up a little bit because it's unusual, because I've been doing cable television programming since before there was public access. Back in about 1970 we got going. And for the first time, somebody called me and said, "What are you up to, Harold?" You know, nobody's ever asked me that. There's no venue for presenting something, because you're always welcome. And again, it's too bad, because I got some ideas, and there's a long life behind it. And sometimes people say I talk too much, that sort of thing. And so you called me and said, "Why don't we do a program where you come on, but then you talk about my thing and I present it?" And I said, "Well, that's a little odd." And then we said, "We'll try it." And they said, "Well, I welcome it." And I said, "Okay, Paul, let's go for it." In fact, we're going to do 2 hours where I'm going to try and set the pattern. So we ought to let the audience know about that right at the outset. But do touch really quickly, you just real quickly on your thing, and then we'll get into a discussion of Harold Channer and public access and my career, my background, which I welcome the opportunity here on Conversations, and would welcome the opportunity to talk to anybody that would want to talk to me about the way I see things. But share just your own background quick, and then bring it around to what
Sure, Harold. Well, it's an honor once again to be here with you.
Always good talking to you,
And
Paul.
I look forward to, in essence, hosting your show. And so, actually it evolves, I think, probably because I am a host of Good News Broadcast.
That's right.
And I'm always usually listening to other people speak about good things, and I think, in essence, their story is the reason why people come to Good News Broadcast, to hear the good things that they have to say. And
right.
That is at least the way I present my my interview.
That's right.
It's a story, a show about the guest.
Right.
And so I thought that it would be interesting to hear about yourself, and that is, in essence, why I did get in touch with you, and plus because the audience needs to know that many people love Harold Channer. You go to a Harold Channer holiday party, and the place is packed all night long, 10 hours in a row. You can't get into it, and that is because a lot of people respect you. You've given many people an opportunity to share what they have, and so I just really felt that appropriate, that it would be interesting to learn more about you. And
well, I welcome the opportunity.
And we're going to do that. My quick background, as you did say, is I have been in the broadcasting industry since the 70s, early 72, with CBS television, actually a long time right close to the studio here in 57th, CBS TV in production on programs, and then...
And PBS too.
And then Channel 13 for many years, and then, so 14 years of that, and then I've had for 21 years a multicultural advertising and marketing company, and out of that 8 years, goodnewsbroadcast.com, which is promoting the world that is doing good things in the world.
Really great site. And you talk to really great people, and
all the time.
It's really good knowing you over the years, and you have some pretty good parties yourself, Colin. Met some really interesting, cutting-edge people. Yeah.
Well, I think we're both very happy about what we do. And because we're sharing, in essence, good news or the positive things that so many people are doing in this world. So I think I want to start this show off with you.
Yeah, right. And I think that's really appropriate, because I think what I'm doing is good news, and I have a view of the world. I do count myself a revolutionary in the sense of sensing very deeply that there is a qualitative transformation required aboard what Bucky Fuller, who was one of my heroes, called Spaceship Earth. I think that the evolving human scenario, particularly the technological extension of our consciousness and so forth, has ushered in a capability of providing for people in a way that really offers an opportunity for avoiding what unfortunately is part of the extension of our technological capability. Weapon systems now, after 200,000 years of human existence, we have weapon systems that if in a spasm of hatred, which there's a great deal of, it was unleashed, it would apparently mean the end of the whole species, which seems to me always a kind of interesting existential fact of our times, as it were, that has not been characteristic of all of history, and I've always, all of our tenure on Earth and so forth, so that I think this is a very unique time. And I think there are other revolutionary capabilities on the averse or living or good news side that is not ever seemingly addressed. They jump right from some political context by and large to one of some, maybe to some spirituality or something. But there's been a change in the ontology or in the reality that is not, it seems to me, ever brought up, and it should be, and that's something that I'm very interested in. So it's an educational pattern that I think in the end, there are a couple of levels of which you can challenge the system. One would be one, if I may, like the Democrats would challenge the Republicans or something, and then you would have a change, or the socialists would, the capitalists, or something within the normal understood reality of what mostly we get in the news and so forth. But there's a larger change, it seems to me, involved at a design level. There's a design and there's a capability that is becoming available to us that mostly is all totally invisible, not able to be understood. It's in the realm of electromagnetic spectrum, all kinds of invisible things that are going on in terms of design, which is a level of transformation. We now have a design capability to destroy the species. There's a great deal of livingry, as Bucky Fuller used to refer to it, on the positive side, and I've been tuned into that for quite a long time.
Let me go backwards a little bit, Harold. Put you into some perspective, if that's okay with you, for the audience, because this is the Harold that they don't know. You know.
Well, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, the Harold of where's Harold from? Where did Harold?
Yeah,
give
I'd be
me
happy
some
to
history,
talk about,
because the thinking
just
that you're sharing, unless
right.
there's something else you'd like to
No,
add.
just one last little thing.
Sure, please.
There's two levels, if I may, and then we'll get to it. We've had an interesting life, and I don't mind sharing it. I love it. There's a lot of interesting things I'd like to share. But there's two levels of transformation, it seems to me. One is this level that's normally perceived in political terms, or, you know, as we understand reality, 99.9% of the news and so forth. The other reality is one in terms of understanding the evolution of universal consciousness, or the comprehensively understood evolution of understanding consciousness and universe, sort of like a transcending of 200,000 years that we've been, and we're coming to the end of a period which is a paradigm shift, very large on a cosmic scale, short of spirituality, but very important, and it does offer opportunities that go all unnoticed. That's just an addendum. But as to where I was born, where I was raised and everything, I'm from the Midwest. I was in Detroit, and I don't mind sharing it. I'd be happy to do it. I'm going to lay it out because I think there's some important things that we've come upon. And we're going to do 2 hours with you.
Right.
Can you sit 2 hours through
Well, I
chatter?
can sit 2 hours, and you said you had a way to break your life down into what, a 35?
Yeah, it is. I see it in 2:35. I'm 70 now, there's two 35-year arcs. One is...
And the man still acts like he's in his 20s. He's got the vigor and the energy of...
Well, I wished I had all that vigor. But it's I was born on March 14th, 1935, Albert Einstein's birthday, as it were, and everything, in Detroit, Michigan. And for the first 35 years, I was engaged. And we're going to go through that in this hour, if we can, because it took me through... I can go through the background a little bit. Then I want to share, since we're talking about me, I might as well lay it out. Maybe I won't have to talk about it so much. People always say I talk too much about it. But and then the second 35 years. So it's a 35-year loop that takes us to 1970, which for reasons that I'll try and spell out, I believe in the fullness of time is going to be seen to be in a certain very real sense, first among some people, it's going to be seen in a sense like a year one. There was a major development in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness, characteristic of the year 1970. That's about the time when we got weapon systems that could destroy the system. And it was also, as we're going to spell out, the time when we were at a design level and capability. We were, according to Buckminster Fuller and others, and it was in the wind of the time, that we were at a design level, a capability level. We were at a point where the technological augmentation was arriving at a unseen but real capability to where there were in the world for the first time in 200,000 years of human existence more haves in terms of our capability than have-nots. We crossed the 50% mark, and I'll spell that out a little bit.
Okay, good.
So we'll kind of take it to that. And we've got a thing we did, a paper we did. We got some notes. We're going to present a thing that goes through the academic. But I was raised in Detroit, middle class. My dad was a lawyer. He's in the class of Michigan 26. Leopold and Loeb were in his class at the University of Michigan. My paternal grandmother was a real pistol. She was the first woman ever to graduate from the University of Michigan Medical College.
Wow.
1888, I believe.
Wow.
So it was that. It was middle class, real warm family background. The family background we had was very warm. 2 elder sisters, and the setting was, I was very privileged, and not in a material setting. It was just middle class setting in Detroit suburbs, but the setting in the household was really very warm and loving, and very intellectually encouraging, and very socially. We used to do a corny thing. We would play with my mother, who was an absolute angel. I guess a lot of people feel that way about their mother, but it was. We would sit around the piano and play songs and sing and everything. And our house was a place where the gang, my sister used to refer to my friends who went on to be brain surgeons and whatnot as the Motley Crew, because, you know, that was a sisterly thing. But it was warm always, and welcoming, and encouraging, and fun. And so it's a privilege thing. Had a dog, that kind of thing. And I was always interested in things comprehensively. I was always interested in things in an autodidact way. I'm not sure if you heard that term. I think it's going to come to be used more and more.
Only from you, but why don't you explain what it is?
Well, it's just a dictionary definition is, and it wants to be qualified a little bit, autodidact is self-taught. You're teaching yourself in terms of that, rather than being taught by something, a system or something like that. And nobody's ever teaching themselves fully. We're all in a social and a larger context. But what it is I was always interested in everything. I always had a comprehensive interest in everything. We had the Encyclopedia Britannica. We had a lot of books. We had the Harvard Classics were there in the living room. This was not a high level thing. It was middle class. Dad a lawyer, and I was always curious about things, reading a lot in my own. It would get me in trouble, because what would happen is if I got interested in something, I might, and it was the age of pre-Spock, but it was permissive, and it was warm, and it was encouraged. If you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
It wasn't, and I have a deep-seated, really deep-seated dislike for authoritarianism. I mean, really deep-seated. Maybe to my detriment, but I really do not like authoritarianism and so forth.
I'm not going to tell you what to do.
I would say I'm talking to the youth when I was there and everything.
I understand.
And the thing is that I would get reading something, Jack London or Call of the Wild, or It's a Piece in the Sky, and I would be up really, really late or something, because I would be autodidactically running that down. I'm in seventh heaven with the internet nowadays, and we'll get back to that, because it's just like incredible what's becoming available to the person who is motivated like a hound dog after a fox and really autodidactically interested. And I think that's something that's really important in terms of the human condition. But I would be interested in everything, and I'd be up and I'd be late, and I never liked school. I never liked school at all. Some people like school, and there are different kind of people in the world, and I accept that and everything. But I never liked school. You had to sit and do what somebody else was telling you what you had to do, and you were up reading and doing something, and you had things to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so
sort of
it was like
authoritarian once again.
well,
of sorts.
it does seem to me, in a sense, to be the whole system is set up to condition. And I understand there's all kinds of different people, and we don't see any enemies or anything like that. But it's set up for there to be a lot of people need or want structure, apparently, or people to tell them what to do. People are comfortable in that. But the whole system seems to be set up in order that the overall riding mission of most of our institutions is to get people to a point where they will fit into an organization where they'll do what they're told in a disciplined kind of way. And it's called responsibility. School systems like, they did a program the other day with a friend of mine, Wendell Walden, and he had a little altercations with the law. I had to do military for a while, and I used to try and explain to the drill sergeant about how we didn't have to always do things, but you know, he had to do some time in a facility or something. And I had a friend of mine, Michael Horowitz, whose poem we're going to show. He's a dear friend. He's a great performance artist that became a student of mine in New Paltz, where I taught. And he said that at the school it was a minimal security correctional facility, and it ties into like the prison system in the Army and the military-industrial or even the corporate structure where you have a senior vice president and everything's organized and everybody's cubicle and everything. I don't like that. Some people do, and it works. It's very much part of the way in which the world is organized and so forth around economic principle, but I never did like that. I was always sort of self-starting or interested in running it down. So that's background, and I was always interested in things. And what happened is I went into geography. I went into history. That was interesting. You could get Toynbee, you get big patterns, and you could be interested in big patterns, comprehensive. I was always at a level interested in understanding things in a systems way, which would be called a systems way, rather than specialized, so that you can, it's a unique capability of human consciousness to be able to recognize patterns between systems. Interestingly, it was Norbert Wiener who said if you have information, if you have information overload within a system, it permits pattern recognition at another level. You can begin to see things whole. And I was always interested in sort of deductive. This thing connects to that, this connects to that. So it doesn't fit in very nicely to specialization or to trying to find out, you know, that kind of thing. I was always interested. But anyway, I did that, and then I got into geography. I'm going to keep my eye on this clock, okay. Got into geography because that's comprehensive, and did some work. And then I went and I had the honor of studying with perhaps a leading geographer. I did the doctoral work at Indiana University, and was studying with a man named Carl Sawyer, be known to many of the academics, Albert Kroeber. These were anthropologically oriented cultural geographers that are looking at things on a large scale. And he had written, and I'm digressing a little, but not really, he had written a book called Agriculture, Origins, and Dispersal. One big question of the evolution of human society was, when did humanity, after we all come out of Africa 200,000 years ago? And isn't it interesting times now? There's so much that we're coming to know. We're coming to know so much now in terms of understanding the patterns of which we're coming out of history. What an interesting time to be alive. And the patterns between systems can begin to be grasped. But he wrote a book he called Agriculture, Origins, and Dispersal, and he was investigating the question. You have Paleolithic mankind wandering around all out of Africa 200,000 years ago, and coming off, what, you know, 13.7 billion years ago, there was a big bang, and the evolution of consciousness. 600 million years ago, we were a sponge in an evolutionary process. Then we came up along the line, Australopithecine, Homo habilis, and about 200,000 years ago, a self-reflective consciousness appeared that is called Homo sapiens sapien. That's our species. We're all one species out of Africa. 10,000 generations. That's interesting, comprehensive data.
And important to remember, we're all brothers and sisters. Homo sapiens, right?
Yeah, I think it goes further. I think it's all one seamless web. The Vedics have been telling us that. We're also linked in. We're all in a sea of bacteria. We walk in a sea. It's all one seamless web. We're one system of consciousness. Although I think you can select for trying to understand the evolution of consciousness, which humanity has a unique role in terms of the broader development of things. But culturally, this man I was studying with was, I'll go through it kind of quickly, but it's getting up to things. So I was in, my wife and I, of the time, he had written a book called Agriculture, Origins and Subversive. Was the idea of agriculture coming into the mind of Paleolithic, Stone Age people at one point on the earth, and then those people move out around the earth carrying that idea. That's a huge idea for transforming, building the basis for civilization, based on 4 food complexes that made possible civilization. You had wheat and barley in the west, rice in the east, in Asia. You had maize in Mexico. And I was interested in what it was a 4th major component, 4th major food complex upon which civilization was realized, and that was the High Highland Food Complex in Bolivia. And I just was interested in the news that this fellow was just elected in Bolivia. He's an Aymara Indian, was elected with 51, 52, 53% of the population, huge percentage of a country where the indigenous people have been very badly treated by their European overlords for a long time. Believe me, I lived among them for about 2 years because I became interested in that. And I went to, my wife, we got in an old car, and it was 10 years old, and it was great. We were just together. It was, it's great. And we drove from Detroit, Michigan to La Paz, Bolivia. And we did research on this culture that had been discovered by Wendell Bennett pre-Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku was a underlying culture that developed in the highlands of South America long before the Inca. Time of Christ, they had an art and some of the architecture rivaling the old world, and it was based upon a unique food complex. I was interested in that food complex where it developed, and did research, got a microclimatological capacity. It was so fun. It was like a treasure. You're just running down trying to find this thing. You're up in the Altiplano, 12,500 feet, and everything, living among the Aymara. And without going in great detail, it's not my thing, but remembering I always had a comprehensive context, and it was always kind of nagging me. I was always interested in everything and getting off on different things. And this connection, rather than going in detail or being concerned with the details, you want to see the patterns, okay? And and I saw that pattern in terms of our anthropology and so on. And they had found a culture that was pre-Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku had been an underlying culture that had an empire that finally, as I said, at the time of Christ, had developed a very rich culture that, as they expanded, empires expand. Rome, America, this kind of, they expand. They expanded all the way to Venezuela. They'd come apart about 100 years before the Spaniards arrived, and then the Wari or the Inca arose. But that culture was called Aymara. And that culture that was based at Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, and that's where I lived for 2 years. Both my children were conceived on the shores of Lake Titicaca. And it was a beautiful environment. And I had a theory about where they would have been. It would be on little hilltops where these early people would find. And there was a unique ceramic. This is really like a treasure. Intellectually running down a treasure hunt. And you have an idea. There's a ceramic that Wendell Bennett, he was an associate of Margaret Mead's at the Natural History Museum. They had found a ceramic, this is the way you identify ancient culture, that was stratigraphically below early Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku had gone through phases, as they could tell, but we had no carbon dating until about 1950. They came to date it, and that piece of ceramic, there's a little evidence from the type site and from the an island in the lake itself. He called it Chiripa. It was named after a hacienda, and so we had evidence of an early culture, and it finally got dated about 1956 and went back 2600 BC. You had a culture that had domesticated the potato, but learned how to do the chewing. You make the basis for security from the food quest and build a civilization, a cultural hearth, the furthest from where we all come, the furthest way away from Africa that a cultural hearth. And it came to be, so I went, I knew what I was looking for. And I went out on the mountain, I mapped it, and we got it all, worked it all out. This is all, working it out. It was such fun. I think I had a pony, and we're out there looking, we know what we're looking for. And usually you get a theory like that, and you go, and it doesn't, it falls. And a lot of the things you try and do, particularly if you're going out looking into a lot of different things, you're going to get a lot of failure and everything like that. But I went, and Paul, they had Inca stuff, they had Tijuana, and then it was littered with choripa, which I was looking for. And I stood on the mountaintop, corny, and I put that up in the air, and I said, Eureka! It was so great. The point being, though, really, that I was living among the Aymara in Bolivia, and this is about in the 60s, and came back to Detroit to teach at Wayne University in Detroit, and Paul, the world had been totally turned upside down, okay? Here it was, you had Bob Dylan, you had the Beatles, you had everybody with their hair down to their back.
You were in your 30s here.
Well, I would have been, in what year was I talking now?
You said in the
about
60s.
64. I was born in 35,
right,
so you do the math.
45,
so
55.
Yeah, around, it would have been, I would have been 30 or so, in your prime, that kind of thing. And I came back, and I said, what's going on? Because I'd been living in the boondock, the great and everything, specializing in a sense in this antiquity reading, that kind of thing. It was really interesting, doing a dissertation work and everything. And just
was this your dissertation?
Yeah, it was the work for the dissertation. It was just great. And I'd studied with the leading geographer, interested in everything all the time. And so it was there, and I was trying to understand, what in the world is going on? We had the Vietnam thing, we had this, and on the television, they had public television then in Detroit. It came on, it was with the family, and my mother was with us still then and everything. And it came on television, two people, I think it was almost within 1 week. One was Buckminster Fuller, and the other one was Marshall McLuhan. They did programs with him. And both of them were academics, and both of them said one thing, and it really resonated with me. They said, dare to be a comprehensivist. There is no department in any university that is interested in everything, and yet the world is. So you're interested in dare to be a comprehensivist rather than a specialist. And all of academia was galloping towards specialization with the quantification and so forth. And I was hooked. Buckminster Fuller, he made such good sense, and he was a maverick. He was also a great human being, and he had a great sense of humanity and so forth. And Marshall McLuhan was overwhelmingly interested. Pick up on Teilhard de Chardin. These are comprehensivists. And if you're in a comprehensive context, you're in a pattern-recognizing context against the specialization that is done. And I was hooked into that. And then also with the anti-authoritarian thing. And then you had the anti-Vietnam. I got involved with that pretty soon, and I fell in with John Sinclair. I wanted to understand what was going on. John Sinclair, the White Panthers, they had a commune there, and I met Elena, his wife, and I'm learning from the kids, okay? And I also got into a thing where so you're a professor, so I'm teaching in a university, and I fell into a pattern where I taught about 7 years at different schools, and I got into a pattern. There was only 1 year that I actually participated in the system, I think. It may have been at Wayne that year. For 2 quarters, I may have inadvertently done it, where they would come into the class, and you're going to teach something, and you would say, what do I have to do to be a C? What do I have to do to a B? They're all looking for some outer-directed thing and everything. And what I did as a professor, I had a great deal of difficulty with administration and everything, to get rid of any authority. Is to get rid of any authority, I would just say, give everybody an A on the first day. And I would say, that's it, you're all A, and I'll be here every day. And if you want to come, we'll do something. But to get rid of this thing where they're trying to do something according to what I'm going to, now that runs really counter to the way the academic system is set up and so forth. So I had great difficulty in terms of, but I did it. And what would happen is I found that the people who were interested in the grade and the drone and the certification and that kind of thing, which is a great deal of what the educational process is about, would go away. And then what happened is I'd be there, and what happened, the smartest people on the campus would come and just sit in. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
Autodidact. The smartest people drop out of the system. Now that's an idea, and the smartest people, particularly in a comprehensive contract, drop out of the system because the system is out of date with what's required for real understanding and learning and so forth. And it is now. Okay? So that's a theme. And so I got interested in that at a number of different universities. I would set up and I would just say, well, we'll just do it, but I didn't want to have any authority over anybody. And and I also got interested in the media. So what I did, I had difficulty. There's a great number of things you could go into. Really exciting, learning from the kids, learning from the environment, really learning like crazy, and everything, what was going on in the television, and then. Don't want to go into it. There are things about the Vietnam, and Mr. Reagan was in California when I was at the University of California College, and we had a confrontation there along these lines of that. The people in the faculty and the students, everybody loved me, it seemed, and they would say, just take the papers and throw them down the stairs and give everybody this one an A, that one a B, just give this grade. And what I got to the point was where I was saying, I really think things are being transformed from a comprehensive understanding, and that we really ought to think about setting the university up as the design center. And when we talk about it, what we're talking about is we're coming to the end of the human experience in terms of having arrived at a point where we are, in a comprehensive design sense, transcending scarcity. That was the major premise behind Buckminster Fuller and his work. The world game, which was the most important and valid source of information about human trends, population trends, new resources, new capability, design capability, a design science revolution. He was never political. He would say, it's anticipatory design science. And that's where the change is taking place. It's not taking place politically. Those institutions are outdated by the design capability which is coming, and that we have a liberating capability at the level of design that is, so you'd say, make the world one where the good can come out. And that he came to he measured the number of people that were haves or have-nots, which you would argue how you defined it and so forth. And he came to the conclusion that the general thesis, the conclusion was that due to technological productiveness, to avoid productivity for reasons of illuminating in the second hour of this program the critique of the labor theory of value that informs practically all of labor economic theory, and therefore the political process by which the planet is maladroitly being organized now, in my perception. But he said anticipatory design science, and so the design science revolution is there, and that we are transcending scarcity, and the rationale by which most all of our institutions, which are authoritarian, not liberating of the human spirit in a way that the zeitgeist requires, in my view, if we're going to, as we say, make it, not destroy our whole system, utilizing outdated systems that are still in place and make up 99% of what we see in the news and so forth. But there's a revolution going on at that level, and I was hooked on that, and I would do it. Now, there's a whole lot of things we could go into there, But I ended up going to New Paltz, upstate, near Woodstock, and I ended up being a professor for 3 long years there. And 3 long years, and it was all during the Woodstock business and all of that and everything, learning from the youth and learning from poets and so forth. And when I was there, by the time I got to the 3rd year, I was saying, and no grade, they allowed I could be there for 3 years. The president, I want to get a good word in for him. He was a good guy, and they managed to have me for 3 years, me being there without giving grades to giving everybody an A. And my class would only be filled with, it seems to me, all the brightest poets and that. I mean, they wouldn't be there because of some. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do,
okay.
I do.
And then it spilled out into a general
They came because they wanted to be there.
Exactly.
Not because of the grades.
Right. And that's not the case with the majority, nor is it the assumption of the institutional structure of our society.
It's not set up that way.
So I ended up, and I got to go fast because we've got about 15 minutes to spend. We were there, and this is going to bring us up to about the year 1970. Fuller took this measurement, and he had come. There were others, Booksh and others, and there are others, and it could be investigated. It's an idea. It could be investigated that we were arriving at a greater percentage of the world population through our capability were able to be seen as haves. You need a definition of terms through time as a general proposition. Due to technological productiveness, a higher percentage of the world population can realistically be seen to be haves through time as a principle. It's a trend you project. We come out of history. His reading was, and my intuitive sensing and everything was, that we crossed that 50% line where there were more haves and have-nots in terms of our capability. In the same year we crossed the line where we could destroy the whole species, 1970. A case can be made for 1970 being year 1, and we made that case. And we said, let's set the university up as a design center for utilizing the new media and presenting a design capability that is not being picked up on by the institutions. And so I put out a series of what we call rap sessions with the students and that. And I put out, in the end, I got fired in the end because they can't have that. You know, you've got to keep that authoritarian thing in place in terms of the society and everything because you can't see it. But I put out in the end a newspaper, okay? And I wanted to show, this is just about the last one that exists. And the school newspaper, the college newspaper, was called The Oracle. That was its name. Now this thing is a reprint that was done with a very clever cartoonist of the time. This was done in 1970. And what it was a statement that I made about the academic scene. And it came out. I was saying to them, let's stop grading everybody. Let's just make a really interesting environment. Let's set it up as a design. Everybody's smart. Let's set it up as a design center. And let's set it up as a place in which we could utilize the new media, become that, and everything. And I assume that why don't we make a coup and set it up as a model for universities around the world because we're transcending scarcity, okay? And I put that out, and I can go in detail, but why don't we, I've got a series of those pages, and you can see that they fold like this, and then they come like this, and they're pages. Okay. And there's some cartoons that were done by Raul Vazina, and it's got a poem. So why don't we have this? And this is turn it around like that. And this is we're going to try and get through this. We've got about 15, 20 minutes or so we can get through this. Okay, this is it. So you can understand, folks, if you're looking, if you can come in on the picture, please. If you come in on, you can see that that's folding. This is the cover, and this is the back page of the newspaper that was done. You can come in a little tighter. And it's a poem. And it says all they ever gave him, he always wanted lion's mane. This is from a poet friend of Mikhail Horowitz. People will know him. He's the best performance artist in the country. Okay. He always wanted a lion's mane. All they ever gave him was a resistant, relentless pursuit and tie. The original Jack of Diamonds, the Aboriginal Jack of, the original Jack of, what's this? I can't read.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. Original Jack of Diamonds, The Oracle. That was the name of the college newspaper, and it was a play upon that. And then it came over here. And what's it say, Paul?
He knew that
angels had horns,
knew that a man and a woman in love are pieces of something that kindle the stars.
That was part of a thing. Now, everybody there knew that, and this was my wife at the time, my 2 kids, and my lovely mother had visited us when we were there.
Where are your kids? Are there?
Yeah, there you see, they're now, David's at Berkeley and Lisa's at a university. They're grown, of course. This was 1970.
As for teachers or as...
Oh, yeah, they're in that. They're doing
thing.
great. They're doing great.
Yes?
They're doing great.
Great.
Yeah, they're just great. Now, this was, okay, so then, let's go. We can bring these down, okay? Now, just to put these down on here. Now, what, so this then is the front page, and this is where I was taken from my classroom in 1970 and declaring this time. And this, I'm happy to say the good people at NYPC are going to help me put this newspaper on my website. I have a website, channer.tv. We're going to change the world.
Okay.
In design, science, sense, and with public access television and so forth. But it says, after devoting a great deal of his last year with SUNY New Pulse to recording and publishing a series of year 1 rap sessions with the colleagues and students, the academic scene, where do we go from here? Professor of Geography Harold H. Channer was, without any warning, taken from his college classroom last April, charged with forgery, and most unceremoniously incarcerated in the Poughkeepsie Pokey. They put me in prison out of my class and everything. And so what we did, and a series of things for about 5 years running, these things happened to me on October 12th all the time. First rap session, other things, got arrested, got cleared, and I got cleared finally, and I can't go into detail, we're going to have to move along, but we had a whole array of people who were around, the poets. We were in touch with poets from the whole thing in 1970, and I was saying, why don't we, this relates to the idea of how are we going to organize the educational enterprise, the university particularly. I think they're very badly organized as far as I'm concerned and everything. And this is declaring a new era, which we call the Paleosynergetic era. We're going to have it on the website. You can go to that. You can't read the fine print. I essentially granted a general amnesty to the functionaries in the system for having erroneously accused me of forgery when I was a policeman was identified as the culprit, not me. Don't go into detail. But I instead of suing and being upset, I said, and this was done on the first day of the last day of the first year of what we call the Paleosynergetic era. That was October 12th of 1971. We transcended, not only in 1970, the design capability of transcending scarcity, which we haven't caught up with. We're just about to catch up with it in 1970. And that was the Paleosynergetic era, and I introduced in this paper, it was about a 30-odd year period of imminent crisis at all our institutions as we dealt with the implications of the fact that there's a qualitative liberating transformation that's there before us. And we have not dealt with it now. We're still dealing with it in the world. And I put out these series of rap sessions, and you can come in on the art. It was called the Reprinted from the Academic Scene, and that was, you understand, these are all folding inside. So let's go down to the next level, okay, and let's not let them fall. And then now what we're going to have to do, this is a statement, we got for 12 minutes. Let's try and get through this. This is a statement here, and you can see it says, can you come in on it, Gloria? Just don't worry about the hand in the way and everything. So you've got here, this is a statement by the department. It's worth noting. This is a thing by the president. And it says, if I can read from it, it's when he retired. The President John Mu-Ammar was a good man. He said, indeed, I've often stated my disbelief in the idea that a university is or can be morally neutral. Mind you, I'm interested in education, particularly at a high level of comprehensive systems understanding of what's going on. I don't think we have a clear enough understanding. The intellectual community is not presented to the world an understanding that is adequate to what is required by the zeitgeist. And it says, while its traditional role may have been to serve the status quo, I still believe that this role can and must be altered. I want now to renew my intellectual emotions, social energy, so I can participate more effectively in the struggle for human liberation, which alone determines to what extent academic freedom is administrative sham, and professional self-indulgence, and to what extent it is an ideal that has practical significance. By this I mean significance not only to the college community, but to the larger community beyond the campus, which remains comparatively deprived of the material and spiritual liberating efforts that are supposedly to be the hallmarks of higher education. Dr. John Mu-Ammar announcing his decision to retire at the president of his 4th year as the president of the college. And this is a transcript of the rap session that we did. So you see all this script. We're not going to be able to show this. This is details of what was going on. But what we have is a very clever presentation by a really great figurative artist. And this is a summary of it. And we're going to be able to come in tight focus as we can on this. And we're going to try and get through this before we end this hour. And so what it starts off is, this is like a manifesto, and it says, and if you could read this not only about a university, but about the Internet, because the Internet and the human society at large, this is relevant. It's not dead on, but it's relevant to the condition, the human condition, seen from a comprehensive context. So it's not just a university, affects a university, but all of our institutions in a sense. So let's go through these things. And these little statements are summations of what's contained in the rap. It says, need for fundamental change. We should collectively agree to change. And we're going to go through these, okay? We're going to take the time to go through them. I think this is a neat. We should collectively agree to change the organizing assumptions of our community. Say university, say planet, say nation, say whatever you want in a design sense. The power structure is taken for granted. There's the power structure within a university. Eliminate institutionalized power relationships, okay? And it's this is university now. Now stay on, just move away, Paul, so they can see, so you can come in on this. And then it comes up there. We'll just scroll down this. We're going to go kind of fast. And stop training people to fit into bureaucracies is what the educational institutional pattern does. I know the ideas about how we're helping and so forth, but people can autodidactically learn things. Environment corrupted by authoritarianism. Abolish grading. If you do away, imagine there's no grades given in a university, okay? Negative feedback, that whole thing. Abolish that, okay? Replace with certificate of participation. No need to demand concentration on specific information which is now easily accessible to all. This was done in 1990, okay, and things are emerging. It gets in the way of real learning. What we're really interested in now is real learning, not bureaucrats that are going to serve a system and so forth. Concentrate on making the general environment interesting, okay? Put on a thing about black holes. Put on the thing, and outreach of media and so forth. And if you can see a little cartoon, it says here, members of the members of the community may or may not participate according to individual free choice. If you're really good, you got something together, they'll come. If you don't, you need institutional things to require them to get a certificate. And mostly what they're concerned about is getting a certificate that's going to allow them to get a job, which is now becoming outdated, in a system so they get the right to have food to eat and or positive feedback from the environment. That's what it is about by and large, rather than real learning, okay? Anyway, that's an assumption. Members, okay, and it says, go where you want to go, do what you want to do. Help me remove, this is 2 more pages of this thing. So it becomes, let's see, where are we? We're going to, maybe you have to go fast now. We're going to have to go fast now. We only got 8 minutes. Learning becomes fun. Now scroll down on this. Learning becomes fun. Affirmation of television as potential artistic educational medium. Community participation in production of media presentations. Why don't we become a media presentation place where you take the patterns of the professors and so forth and put them. Pattern recognition is the consciousness that's emerging. Comprehensive understanding of systems is what's emerging, not specialization. Ran against the whole zeitgeist that is there. Relevant to the new consciousness that is emerging, okay? Can you come in tighter on that? Can you come in tighter on just the column? That's it. You don't need to have that print at all. whole view of jobs not relevant in a cybernated economy. That's coming to haunt us now. It's going to be coming back, and it's new consciousness demands artistic autonomy for each individual. Stop trying to fit people into slots. The best ones will drop out. If they don't drop out physically, they'll drop out psychologically, and it's happening. Top-down authoritarian bureaucracy, inadequate organizational model, expanded role for the professors, turn the professors into media stars. Get the best professor, get the best perceptions and mediate it. Turn it into a mediated kind of environment where it's done. They had a thing on the Discovery Channel the other day where they've taken the best research of paleontologists and presented mock-ups of what the creatures looked like 45 million years ago. Staggeringly poetic. Have your poems set to music. Individual access to available information increasing greatly. Expanded role of education. Future social, economic, and political milieu conducive to free inquiry. Willingness to accept fundamental responsibility essential. What stimulates curiosity and interest more? Textbooks or multimedia mind blowers? Now that's going to upset a lot of people who are interested in specializing, and they've got a captive audience to specialize in something. And Bucky Fuller said, it's just like divide and conquer. There's things going on comprehensive. The people running the show consciously give support to graduate schools to get the best minds so specialized out they can't think about the whole and become, it's like divide and conquer among the colonial empires. It says the new consciousness relates to comprehensive access to information. Older people tended to be specialists, okay? Real change must be gentle, ultimately totally inclusive. I don't think there's any enemies in this except understanding. Linear approach to information, also important. Older people with linear constructions will provide tensional integrity, which coheres the whole. We've got to go fast now, really fast, because we're coming. Okay, let's go. I'm just going to run through this really quick now. I'm just not going to make any obiter dictum or anything. Primordial man was, this is the center page. Primordial man was ecologically in touch, came the invention of tools, expelled nature. Effects of tools created sensorial disequilibrium, disproportionate sensorial closure. We're now being restored to nature, to a vibratory state. Imbalance greatest in recent histories. Computers and satellites are extension of man's consciousness. This is McLuhan, Fuller, and Turing, and all that. Complete sensorial closure. We're now being rejoined to nature cosmically. Close quotes on the human chapter, the alienated chapter. Universal intelligent purpose in universe. Humanity now capable of assuming responsibility for the evolution of universal consciousness. New capability of making whole Earth environment the way it is meant to be at another level of nested understanding, the evolution of consciousness. These are big things that are going on. Pain and fear attendant upon leaving the old space and finding no context for embracing the new. Humanity to be introduced into conscious purpose in universe. These are things that are going on and are not about to be made clear. Primordial man was in touch but ignorant, will be in touch but know it. Universities capable of serving a higher function could prevent a sense of relevance. Become agency of planetary planning, capable of dealing with world emerging surplus situation. Scarcity thinking no longer necessary. We're transcending scarcity, ladies and gentlemen. We need a new design science. We already have surplus of information. Traditional sources of government authority hampered. Comprehensively correct intellectual construct must be given credence through the whole. The residue extra to the collective agreement of intellectually comprehensive constructions is synergy. Synergy is the behavior of systems unpredicted by the sum of its parts. It's the paleo-synergetic era we've been living in for 35 years, and we're about to be introduced in the synergetic era. It's a period of liberation that's at hand if we make it, when we don't destroy ourselves. Interpersonal resonance, touch, or vibratory state relates to life force manifest in maximally engaged organisms. Entire Earth cohered to universe by something more than the sum of a maximally engaged humanity. Everyone must be maximally engaged. If one of us is hungry, we all are hungry. Environment must be made supportive of universal artistic autonomy. Need agency which will provide context. Colleges and universities could help serve that. Rename the university Synergy U, or it could be called maybe Autodidact U. And the internet is now emerging. Okay, we're not going to be able to get through this. Provide a, so that the university could become a design, let's just see what they look like. We're going to have to come back to, we're going to try and get this on the website. We're going to try and get this on the importance of education, and then, okay, we're not able to get through. This is because we run out of time. But we're coming to a design and a capability of non-scarcity. We have a capability of providing for everyone. We need new design capability. There's a new book out now. I'd like to Massive Change. This is a book that's worthwhile being aware of. This is by a fellow named Bruce Mao. It's just out, and it's the design science revolution at all levels. Here's Tyson. Cybernetics, new materials, all of these things. Carbon-60, which is coming, is going to be the basis of the internet. They're called the basis of New York. We are coming to a time of qualitative transformation that is never voiced in terms of the real world of largely politically oriented. It is voiced in the community access movement in television, and in a very real sense, access television was out there on the frontier before there was an internet. We now have an internet which could be very much seen along the lines of what the university that I was thinking would be right. It is becoming a place where you can have a design center that can take advantage and present alternatives to that which we've inherited. And so that I wanted to show. We're going to have to see it, I guess, on the internet because we got all wrapped up. But that's some of my background. 1970 is going to be seen in the fullness of time as year one. And they're going to concentrate not on ignoring the fact that something qualitative is going on, but celebrating it. And that's what I was doing. And I'm afraid we've run out of time for this hour. It's all in there. It'll be Buckminster Fuller. We're going to put this on the site, and then we're going to do another hour here in a little while, where we'll maybe be able to, maybe we'll go back and pick up some of this and then bring it up to date. But we're talking with Paul has asked me to share my background, some of my background.
I'm talking with Harold.
Yeah, run the
Harold's
credits.
talking.
Run the credits on this. Is going to air on Monday. We'll